there. I'm back in my regular office after traveling to visit my parents. And it was a very long drive back, but uneventful, thankfully. But one of the things that happened while I was driving, and this has happened before, is a state trooper pulls out into the traffic, and we're on an interstate. And all of a sudden, everybody becomes a model driver. Everybody slows down. Nobody wants to speed around or pass the state trooper. We're all just, keeping tabs on what he's doing and how fast he's going and adjusting our stuff accordingly. And I've always thought, like, what is it like to be a state trooper? If anybody knows, I'd love to know, knowing that, ugh, I'm the one who's controlling what is happening with the traffic right now. And so I was thinking about that, that construct of traffic. And, because my background is in engineering and I've done some road design, I know from reading things. And one of the reasons that there's problems with speeding in a lot of places is that roads are over-designed and people naturally will drive the speeds that they feel safe. And so there are natural traffic calming devices like narrower roads slow people down, or street parking slows people down. Things that basically make the road feel a little bit less safe. But when you've got a straight shot on an interstate highway where you've got nice wide lanes and there's nothing happening, if there's not traffic, there's nothing inherently signaling that things are unsafe. And the roads you could go faster on those roads. I mean, just according to the traffic design manuals, but they don't want that to happen, because safety. So they put these speed limits on roads that may be less than what people might naturally want to drive at. And you see that all the time on highways. And I see that around my neighborhood. Like the street that I live on has a lot of street parking. People drive much more slowly on that street, but I also live on a corner, and the other street doesn't have as much street parking, and people fly down that road because it's the same width, but because there aren't cars on either side, it feels like you can drive faster. And it's the same speed limit on both roads, and they're both kind of windy. So it is. I mean, we just naturally adjust to that. And this is not suggesting that you speed, but it is what it is. We naturally are going to do, unless we're super rule followers, we're going to do what doesn't feel unsafe to us. So, but there are those natural physical things that actually do slow us down, like other cars in the road or narrower lanes, things that we can't do anything about, and we just have to adjust how we act. But then there are the artificial constraints, and that we must innately know that are kind of artificial. So like the speed limit is kind of an artificial constraint. Our cars can also go faster than the speed limit, but we just don't go that fast, And I was thinking about how that relates to like work and our how we normally think about work, or how we were conditioned to think about work, at least, my generation or, cohort or whatever, that, there was just this path that you went on, and you just followed it. And it didn't matter whether those constraints were real or not. It was just this artificial, this is what it's going to be. This is how your careers work. You go into one, you stay there forever, and then you leave, and that's it. And that just doesn't work, or it doesn't feel natural, at least to me and a lot of other people I know, largely women, because that model again was designed not for women or with women in mind, but also because I don't operate that way. My brain is like, well, why would I want to do the same thing over and over and over again for 40 or 50 years? Even if I'm advancing, it's still the same stuff, and that's boring. So I was just thinking about that parallel between like the real constraints. Like there are things that might hold you where you are if you you have caregiving responsibilities and you really can't take on starting your own business or making a drastic career change. If you need some security, there's all kinds of real constraints that can affect what we're able to do. But sometimes those constraints are not actual constraints, but they're just things that we think in our head are important because someone told us they were, but in actuality, when you look at it, the justification for it isn't there. It's not a physical constraint. It's an artificial constraint. And so I encourage you to think about what is maybe holding you back, if anything. Is it a legitimate thing that at this time you cannot do anything about? Or is it something that you have just absorbed as a constraint, like the speed limit, or, that cop on the road who can give you the ticket? Although I guess that's kind of more of a real constraint, because that's a very true thing that can happen. But is it something that is really inhibiting you, or is it something that you've just been taught is something that should inhibit you? Like, you're not supposed to do that, so don't do it. Yeah, and so I was just thinking about that on my drive home, because I had a lot of time in the car, windshield time, windshield time, as one of my colleagues calls it. My son was keeping himself occupied in the back seat, so I had a lot of time to think about things. Unfortunately, I can't yet beam my thoughts directly onto paper, which is like, I'm waiting for like the robot technology to allow me to do that, because trying to remember all of those things that I want to talk about, or that are just cool ideas that I have, it's really hard when I'm driving. Usually I'll leave a voice memo, but sometimes that's just not practical. So I take to like scratching things down on random little scraps of paper in my car, and then having to remember to take them out of my car, and then remember what that random word that I scratched meant. It's always a good time. Anyway, I was just thinking about that and wanted to share it, and I hope you are having a good day, and thanks for listening.